everyone, and welcome to season 2 of One on One. I'm your host, Tyler Small, and once again, we have another great list of guests coming up of LaSalle notable alums. And today we are going to be starting with Casey Feeney, a LaSalle University alum who now works with NBC Sports Philadelphia. Casey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tyler. It's a pleasure.
So, Casey, you are now in, as your LinkedIn says, year 15 with NBC Sports Philadelphia as a senior coordinating producer. Talk a little bit about what that experience has been like and how you've been enjoying your time there so far, because 15 years, you must be liking it.
I do, yeah. I would not have guessed 15 years ago that this, the path would go exactly the way it's gone. But, I started as a part-time production assistant 3 days after graduating from LaSalle. Quickly became full-time, and then, had a number of roles throughout the years. And for the last, 4 or 5 now, I've been a senior coordinating producer, overseeing our pre and post game shows every night. So, as a kid growing up in the Philadelphia area and being a lifelong sports fan and kind of, crazy about sports, it's hard to think of a better job shy of being able to play, which that dream left me many, many years ago. But if I could do that, this is a pretty good second place. So I'll take it.
Yeah, good second is right. I could definitely say that. So talk a little bit about what goes into what you do. Talk about a day to day and what goes into making these high-end productions live every night.
So basically my role is kind of supervising. So, I have line producers who report to me every day. We kind of break it up by team. So we have a Sixers pre and post game producer, a Flyers pre and post game producer, Phillies and Eagles. So, those people will, basically figure out day to day what should be in a show. And I kind of oversee that, keeping an eye on the big picture, trying to help facilitate if we need guests or if we need cameras in certain places, who is there doing that. So a lot of logistics. It's a lot of coaching, our talent. It's coaching our younger staff. We have to make sure on a nightly basis the graphics get built. We have to make sure that our host and our analysts, know the rundown, that they're having their input heard. Obviously from a pre and post game perspective, our analysts know a lot more about what's going on with the team and the day to day of, what happens inside a game better than I can, tell them, or one of our producers can tell them. So it's important to get their feedback, hear what they're saying, get their ideas, and then kind of bring those to life on a daily basis. So, if you're using a sports analogy, I kind of see myself as like a head coach, and everyone else is kind of out there and has to execute the play. And sometimes, you have to adapt and see what others are seeing. But it's kind of my job to kind of take the objectives from above me and kind of get them on the air on a nightly basis.
So I've always wondered about that dynamic of working with either the talent or just kind of staying as one unit, where these conversations, as we've seen in these sort of pre-post game shows, really could vary much further away from the game than you were anticipating. So talk about what that process is like, just kind of staying in tune with whether it's the on-air talent kind of working the conversation, or is it you guys leading it because of a script base? What is that like?
So our pregame show is relatively scripted. Like, we know where it's going. Our talent will write lead-ins to topics and things like that. Our postgame is completely free-flowing. Like, we have a general sense of where we're going in a segment, but the nature of sports is the Phillies game the other night where Luke Williams hits a walk-off home run on the last hitter of the game. You think the game's going one way for 3 hours, and then all of a sudden in 1 minute you're doing a completely different show. So you have about 6 minutes to get it ready from end of game to when you start. So you have to be adaptable and adjust. But we do a daily call every day on a game day with our team. So that's myself, it's our show producer, it's our talent, it's our executives above us, it's the game producer. Like, one of the big things that we've really worked on in the last couple of years that I've kind of been, certainly near the tip of the spear, so to speak, is, getting that coordination between the studio production and the game production. And the more that we can lean on the game production and utilize, the game broadcasters utilize all the cameras that they have available to them to tell stories in a more, complete way. So we have those conversations every day. We have an idea of what we're going to talk about ahead of time. We get our feedback there from our talent. Hey, what do they want to talk about? How can we present that in a way that's compelling or different than another, media outlet might have already done it? So, obviously there's only so many important topics for every game, and other people are going to do them as well, other outlets, whether that be digital, print, linear. So you try to present things in a different way, in a unique way, and you hope your analysts kind of give you that unique kind of aspect that no one else really has, that kind of expertise available on that platform to kind of present that information. So you really want to showcase them as best you can. So that's kind of how that happens. And then during the day, during the game, the talent, the producer, myself, we're all sitting together watching it. We're discussing what's going on. We're taking notes. We have, our editing staff, we're giving them information. Our graphics producers, we're letting them know what we might need, and they're pitching ideas to us. So, and then, the final out, the clock hits 0 and it's time to go.
So you've been in this industry for a long time, as we just said, and you have seen media change probably so much throughout this entire span. What do you think has been the biggest, most notable change of recent that people like me and other of my co-students should be looking forward to or preparing for once we get into the field?
To your point, there's been 1,000 changes. So to pick hey, here's the one thing to think about. But I'd say the biggest shift is there was a time where during the course of a day, a person who was, your audience who was working 9 to 5 standard job, they wouldn't know the information when they got home and you were presenting that fresh to them. But with social media and all the various platforms, and people who are intrigued enough to want to watch your pregame show are probably intrigued enough to want to follow throughout the course of the day. And that doesn't mean they're on their phone every second, but they have a general sense of if a trade was made or if a signing was made or if, player got cut, whatever the news of the day is. So it's really been incumbent on us to, okay, we're not winning the battle of presenting that information first anymore. And it's really not what it's about. Everyone gets that information immediately. And, by the time someone has it, 9 other people have confirmed it and reported it. So how do you present that information in a way that informs your audience and gives them information they didn't have while also entertaining them? So that's been a massive shift since I started 15 years ago. And obviously my role has changed significantly in that time as well. But it's really about how do we entertain and inform as opposed to just presenting the information of the day.
That's a really interesting answer because, yeah, you're right. Everyone has Twitter now. Everyone knows as soon as things happen to the second, basically, it's become a race for it. Do you think that potentially hurts or helps your audience? Because now you, like you said, you can kind of change the program so it could be more discussing these in depth as opposed to just relaying the news at first. So do you think that more people tune in because they heard about a trade and want to hear what the pros have to talk about it? Or was it better when they were just announcing it straight up?
I wouldn't qualify hey, it's better or worse. It's just different. It's in any profession or any business, you either adapt to the circumstances you're in or you go away. So to me, it's about adapting, and the audience and their values and their desires have changed, and we're trying to meet them where they are. And the good thing about NBC Sports Philadelphia is it's not like we're not reporting news either. We have insiders who are covering the teams, and we have our website, we have our My Teams app. We can have a presence in that regard. And then on the television linear side, we're not pregame is going to be an hour before the game. So if the news breaks at 11 a.m. and we have a 7 o'clock game, from my perspective, we're not going to do the news anymore, but we can do stuff that is still entertaining and informative. And, I don't think that's going, as long as you can entertain, I don't think that's going away anytime soon. So it's really just about how do we spin it? How do we put a different spin on it? How do we make it unique to us? And how do we keep it in the voice of our audience? Every market's different. So if Philadelphia, one of the advantages of being, with NBC Universal is I get to talk with, my counterparts in the Bay Area. I get to talk to my counterparts in Chicago. I get to talk to my counterparts in Boston, so on and so forth. So, but the thing you find is while there's some best practices that hold true everywhere, every audience is different. So how do you serve your audience in a way that's authentic and in their voice? So that's kind of our mission, regardless of whether, 15 years ago we were trying to be the person that breaks the story at 6:00 or inform you for the first time, or whether now it's about, kind of entertaining and giving you more information or more insight that you wouldn't have.
Great. So to wrap this up, thank you so much for joining me. Just have to end on a LaSalle-based question. I'll take you back to your college days. As a student, you worked with WEXP. You were a producer host for Sports Talk Philadelphia, and you did some interviews for Sportsline. So you were definitely involved in a lot of the production that a lot of students aspiring to be in a position like you are doing today. So could you talk a little bit about what that experience of the LaSalle extracurriculars like that had for you getting to where you are today?
Sure. I had to think back. It was a long time ago now, but basically the thing that I took from my time at LaSalle and those activities you mentioned is that LaSalle gave me the opportunity to do. A lot of places gave you the opportunity to see and to look, but LaSalle, especially the communications department, their mission was and is, and I hope always will be, is to let you do, is to get your hands on things. Like, the first day I showed interest, it was like, okay, let's get you a camera and get you out there, or let's get you behind the mic, or let's get you behind an audio board. So, over my 4 years there, I was able to learn a variety of experiences, a little variety of positions, was able to kind of figure out things that I liked, things that I didn't like. And, the way the world works now, like it really is about how versatile can you be? How adaptable can you be? And one of the things I think I took from my time there was constantly like, if a situation came up, I at least, knew enough about shooting, with a video camera that like, all right, I can have a conversation with a photographer about here's what I'm looking for and not be, over my skis. I can talk to a director about, a cue or something like that, because I've done that role. And again, it's a difference between being in college and pro, and you got to have those conversations in a delicate fashion. But I knew enough, having done a variety of different things, that I knew enough about each role that we were, entering into, that I could have a conversation with people around me and kind of know what I was doing. And I could also kind of know what it was I wanted to do or where I wanted to be. And as things have changed and the world has changed and our industry has changed, I think that adaptability has been, pretty important for me. And I don't know that I would have been as open to that had I not had the experiences at LaSalle, where it was, hey, you want to try this today? Sure. Well, here's what you need to know. Go do it. And, you have your stumbles and you have your successes, and you learn from both. And, I certainly wouldn't trade that experience for anything. It was an invaluable 4 years at LaSalle. And I certainly, made some lifelong friends and had some experiences that have helped me tremendously throughout the years.
That's perfectly put, Casey. Thank you so much for joining us today and taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to come talk with me.
You got it, Tyler. Thanks for having me. And if you ever need anything, let me know.
So that's going to do it for this week's edition of One on One. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.